Hello men and gentle ladies, and welcome back to Surviving the Whiteout, where today we are taking a look at this state transfer event. So I'm going to go through some of the things that happen in this event, how to transfer, some things that happen when you transfer. I'm not going to be able to show it in action because I don't plan to transfer, but hopefully if you are transferring in the near future, it gives you a good idea of what this event looks like. In my other account, on my second account in state 4152, we haven't had a state transfer yet. We're going to be having a state transfer in 4 weeks, I believe, after our third SVS. So for some of those players, this will be the first time seeing what this event looks like. But before I jump into it, just a little advert for both the states that I'm in. So 2613 is a state that I've been in now for 9 months or so. I can't remember the exact time I joined. I think I joined in October, so 10 months. And in 4152, I've been there for 3 months. Both of those states work fairly well. Both states are good and effective and work quite well. NAP is fair in both states and tries to do things to the best of their abilities. So if you're around either of those states and you're looking for a state to join, 2613 or 4152 would love to have you. So state transfer is effectively broken up into 3 different phases. And phase 1 is called the pre-transfer, and it's effectively just the preparation phase. It's where the transfer manager or the state president can set a power cap. Usually they would just set the power cap to be the highest possible because you want to be able to attract the best players. But it's a time for people to have a look at the list of states, have a look at what state they might want to transfer to, maybe speak to some of those transfer managers, speak to people in those states to try to find the best one for you. And there are a lot of reasons why you would be looking for a new state. So myself and my alliance in 2617, we weren't in a particularly good state and this state wasn't working well at all. And we moved some of our players across multiple transfers. So we'll get into that later, but it is not possible to move an entire alliance in one transfer. But when this event came around for the first time, I was the R5 of WXM in 2617, and me and some of the R4s just started contacting different states, trying to figure out which state was a good one to join, how states worked. Funnily enough, 2613 was one of the first states that we contacted, and just they didn't have space for us, and it wasn't going to work out, so we ended up trying to move to another state. That ended up not working out, and we ended up coming to 2613 anyway. But when you click on state list, it gives you the list of states that you can transfer to. Now, there are a couple of caveats. You can't just transfer wherever you want to, but it does show you a certain number of states that you can move to if certain conditions are met. Now, the states that you can transfer to aren't random. They always follow the same principle. So it's any state that is in the same fire crystal age as you. So that could be FC1 to FC3, FC4 to FC5, FC6 to FC8, and FC9 to FC10. But alongside that, you also need to be in the same gen of heroes. So if you are in the same Fire Crystal age, but the state you want to move to is in Gen 7 and you're in Gen 6, you're not going to be able to transfer there. And the other thing that isn't applicable all the time, it's only in a short window, if you are in the same gen and the same FC age as a state, but they have unlocked the War Academy and you haven't, so they have extra buildings in their cities that you don't have, you also will not be able to transfer there. So as long as those things match up, you can. So we can scroll all the way to the top of our transfer group, and if I wanted to, I could move as far back as 2432, which is a long, long way. And if I wanted to go forward, I can only go as far as 2630, so I'm almost at the very top of this transfer group. And you'll notice that some states look slightly different. They've got that little golden border and something that looks quite fancy. It's because they are leading states. And there is a distinction between a leading state and an ordinary state. And it's simply that a leading state is deemed stronger, so therefore gets less invites. Now, that might sound like you're being punished for being stronger, and some people do feel that way, but it's really to try and keep the game as fair as possible. So if a state is excelling and is already incredibly strong, if they just kept bringing in an insane amount of strong players, they would just be the best state. And they can still do that. They can still bring in the best players, but they just have less invites to use. So if we look at 2613, we can see that we have a transfer cap of 55. So 35 can move with invites, 2 can move with special transfer invites, although those aren't counted in the 55. We'll get to that in a second. So that's what we get in an ordinary state. But if we go and look at a leading state like 2614, their numbers are the same. What? That's not supposed to happen. The numbers are supposed to look like that. You're supposed to get 30 invites rather than 55. Why do they have so many? What? Now, there has been some rules that have changed recently in terms of leading states, and I thought I understood them, but maybe I don't. This is funny. I'm doing a video about how state transfers work, and apparently I don't know. So how transfers usually work for a leading state is you just get less transfer invites in phase 2, and you also don't get special invites. But if you've been a leading state for 3 consecutive transfers, then you do get a special invite. But the fact they've got the same amount as us does confuse me. So let's just have a look at this and see if this does explain why that is the case. So we won't go through everything, but under limits, it talks about your limit of being able to move to a state with similar progress. And also if your character is a certain number of days older than a state you want to go to, you just won't be able to. You can see there that the limit is, where does it say? Oh, it actually doesn't say. But I think the limit is, it's 90 to 180 days, I think. I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure I've seen something that says it's between 90 and 180 days. So any state that was created 180 days before you created your character, you won't be able to move to that state. So you can't simply just jump all the way back or all the way forward. There is a certain limit of how far you can go. So state status. States available for transfers have been subdivided into 2 types. Leading states, which are relatively stronger states with transfer scores ranked at the top, while others are ordinary states. Note, state transfer score of a state equals the sum of the transfer score of the top 100 active chiefs in the state. And your transfer score will be calculated by your overall power, your overall chief gear power, basically how strong you are. So then it moves into what each of the 3 phases are, and I'm not going to read through everything, but phase 1 is that preparation phase where you can start talking to different transfer managers. Now, who the transfer manager is depends on the president. So if you are the president supreme, you're going to be the transfer manager. If you're the president, you're going to be the transfer manager. But if you lose castle right before transfer, then the presidency goes to the previous president, I believe. We've not been in that situation before, I don't think, but that's what happens. But then they can choose a different transfer manager. So say you won SVS prep and you went to the other state to fight for their castle, but you lost, your state would still need a president. So the previous president would be elected, but then they could choose somebody else in their alliance to be the transfer manager. So that's how it works. And that transfer manager can then set the power limit of the state. Again, usually they would just set it to the max because you want to attract the right people. And they would be responsible for sending out invites, for talking in NAP and deciding which alliance gets how many invites and who gets the special invites. There's quite a lot that goes into it, but they would be in charge of that and sending all of those invites out. And you also would be contacted by a lot of people. Now, when I was Supreme President, I was lucky because state transfers got delayed. So right when I came in, I didn't have to deal with that, which was absolutely brilliant. But even then, I got contacted by a lot of people. A lot of people were messaging me saying, can you tell me about your state? How does your state work? When are all the bear trap times? When do your alliances usually do foundry? Do you rotate the castle? Are fortresses and strongholds divided between alliances? There are so many questions that people ask, and they're all the right questions. They are all questions that you should be asking. But if you are the transfer manager, you're going to have to answer them a lot. But usually in phase 1, that's where you would decide this alliance gets this many, this alliance gets this many. You come up with the names of who they're going to invite. And then as soon as phase 2 starts, or as close to it when it starts, you send those invites out. So we go down to phase 2. In this phase, still doesn't say anything about the numbers. I'm really confused. But the important thing is about special invites. So when you start, you will start with 3 special invites alongside your 35 normal invites or ordinary invites. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you just go and burn through them straight away, because they are precious and you only ever have 3. But as soon as you use them, you don't automatically get them back. So if you used all 3 in your transfer, so you went down to 0, the next time the transfer came around, you would have 1. So you basically accumulate 1 every single transfer up to 3. So if you have 3 and you don't use any, the next transfer, you're still going to have 3. You're not suddenly going to magically have 4. So if your state does have 3 special invites, make sure you use at least one of them, because next time it will go back up to 3. You just don't want to waste those invites. They are incredibly important because those special invites mean basically the rules of power don't apply. You can invite anyone, regardless of their power, to join your state. It is very valuable. They shouldn't be wasted by not using them, but they also shouldn't be wasted by giving them to people who are barely over that power limit. It really should be reserved for people that are very strong, who wouldn't be able to transfer otherwise, and people that are going to bring a lot of value to your state. And phase 3 is where an open transfer starts. So we'll go back to look at the numbers in a second. So there are 55 spaces that people can take in transfers. 35 of those can be done via invites, and 20 of them are done in phase 3, which is just a complete free-for-all. So as soon as phase 3 starts, regardless of whether you have an invite or not, you can just transfer to that state. Now, the same rules apply in terms of power. So you still need to make sure that you meet that threshold, but you do not need to be invited. You can just move. But those spaces can go very quickly. So when we moved to state 2613, it took us 3 transfers to get everyone over. And the second transfer, I believe, there were about 20 of us that were trying to jump, and I think 14 of us made it, but all of the spaces had gone within 2 minutes. So 2 minutes after 0 UTC, after reset in phase 3, all of those spaces have been gone. So just because anyone can jump during that time doesn't mean that anyone can jump. You have to plan it accordingly. If you're going to a popular state, you've got to make sure you're online, and you've got to make sure you're ready to transfer. And we'll scroll down, see if there's anything else. So special invites are not available to leading states in the interest of promoting balanced gameplay, nor can chiefs over the transfer power cap issue special transfer requests to leading states. But this is what I mentioned earlier. So if a state is a leading state for 3 consecutive transfer events, it will qualify for prestige benefits during the 3rd transfer event, receiving 1 special invite. Additionally, the state's transfer limit and ordinary invites will be increased only during the 3rd transfer event. Okay, so that's why. So I thought it was just that they got 1 extra special invite after being a leading state for 3 consecutive times, but they also get the ordinary invites back. So that is why. Now, it makes sense because state 2614 have been a leading state for as long as I can remember. So clearly for this one, it says they got 2 special invites. Maybe because they didn't use it. So maybe I'm very confused. But they would have now been in their 3rd consecutive time. I mean, I imagine it would have been their 12th consecutive time. But it's their 3rd consecutive time where they get these prestige benefits. And then next transfer, they will go back down to having only 30 people that can join. So if we go and have a look at these numbers, you can see that, again, 55 people can join in that transfer cap. 35 of them can join via ordinary transfer invites, and 2 can join via special transfers. But those 2 do not count towards that 55. So technically 57 people could join our state this transfer. But regardless of how many people transfer in phase 2, you can still always have 55 people join. So say we've got 35 transfer invites. Say we only send 30 out and we don't use the final 5. It's not a massive problem, because in phase 3, instead of just 20 people being able to jump over, 25 can jump over. So your state can always bring in 55 people. At least 55 people. Can be more if you have those special transfer invites. But it also doesn't necessarily mean all of those places will be taken. If you're in a state that hasn't really advertised bringing new players in, it's not a particularly good state, those places probably aren't going to fill up. So I remember leaving 2617, I'm sure they're doing fine now, but I remember when we left to move to 2613, in 2613, all of the invites were gone within minutes. So that looked like 0 out of 55 were left in the transfer cap, which was brilliant. And I then went and looked at 2617, and there were a lot of spaces left. And even once phase 3 ended, I think there were still 20 places that hadn't been taken. So it is about being an attractive state that people do want to join. Because if you're not, your state isn't going to grow. Now, in terms of why you would transfer, there are many reasons. I think I touched on some of them earlier, but it could be that your state is toxic and it's not working particularly well, and your state doesn't share castle. There's one whale that controls everything. There's an alliance that bullies everyone. There are people who just burn all the time. There are just idiots in the state. Every state has some issues, some worse than others. But if you're in a state like that, the chances are you're going to want to transfer. And it's difficult to transfer. It honestly is, because when we were looking for a new state, we were living under shields. We were in a state where just there was so many issues with so many people, and it drove me insane. But we were desperately looking for a new state, but you just don't know what the other state is going to be like. You can talk to the transfer manager and they could say, yeah, this state's lovely, come and join us. And then you join and you find out that they are an absolute tyrant. So there is no guarantee that you're going to find the perfect state. But the good thing about this event is that it does come around often. So usually this event comes around straight after SVS. It's changed quite a lot in the last few months because it has been delayed a few times. They changed the time in which it happened. It got very confusing. But for a long time, it was happening every 4 weeks. So as soon as SVS finished, the next week, this event starts and you can transfer. So even if you move from a state that's horrible to a new state that turns out to be horrible, you're not locked in. You're locked in for at least 4 weeks, but you can move again. Now, there was a cooldown on how many times you can transfer, because I think the cooldown used to be 30 days. So you couldn't transfer twice in 30 days. There was always that 30-day cooldown. I believe it's now 25 days. So technically you can still jump every transfer. You may not always be able to jump in phase 2, but you could theoretically then jump in phase 3. Now, there are 7 thresholds that you need to meet in order to be able to transfer. And you can see that currently I don't fit some of them. So the first one is the transfer power. We need to be below 525. I'm 530, so technically I can't transfer. I also have troops that are currently out on deployment, so I've got people out gathering at the moment. You cannot have that if you want to transfer. You need to be without an alliance. This is an important one, which I'll touch on again in a second, because we've had a few people miss out on transfers because they didn't leave their alliance quick enough. The other ones that you have to be a furnace level 30 or higher, which is fine and normal. You can't be a tyrant, president, or transfer manager of any state. So Frost Dragon Tyrant, not just an actual tyrant, because there are a lot of those in this game. But yeah, you can't hold basically an official position in the game, because that would just stop you from transferring and you wouldn't be able to move. You have to have fewer than 4 characters in the designated state. Why people would have more than that is insane. And I know people that have had more, well, not more, but they've had, how do you have time? And then that final one, over 25 days since the last transfer. But the one I want to talk about first is this transfer power cap. Now, what I'm going to talk about is quite divisive, because I've had people say, this definitely doesn't work. And I've had people say, this definitely works. That's a paradox. That can't be true. One of them has to be true. And I am of the opinion that this does work, and I'm going to tell you why. So in terms of the power cap, I'm obviously over that power right now, so some people might think, oh, I just can't transfer. But there are a couple of ways that you can get your power down. Now, the first one that people talk about quite often is killing troops. So if you go to your troops, I don't think I'll be able to show you now. No, that's annoying. I think it only starts in phase 2, but you can click on your troops and you can dismiss some of them. So if you dismiss them, it doesn't actually kill them, but it just removes them from your city. And when you lose troops, you'll know from SVS, you'll know from other events where you fight and you lose troops, your power goes down. So you can go and dismiss a certain number of troops to bring your power down. I'm only 5 million over, so I wouldn't have to delete that many, but it's a decent way to get your power down just to make sure you are under that threshold. But there is a way to do it without losing troops, without actually losing anything. And there are a couple of different ways. The first way, which I'm not going to show you, but you can absolutely do, is resetting heroes. So you can see currently I've got Edith there, who's 766,000 in power, and she's level 71. If I was to reset her to level 1, that power would go down for Edith and would also go down for me. So a good way to get your power down is to reset all of your heroes to level 1. You're not losing anything because you're getting all of that XP back. So as soon as you transfer, you can then put that XP straight back into those heroes and get back up to your power level. But it's a very good and easy way to bring your power down. I say easy, it's time consuming. You're going to have to reset a lot of people, but it can be done. So you go to your drill camp, you go to level resets, you click on one of the heroes. I mean, I will just do it just for the sake of it. And you reset down to 0. You get all of that XP back, which is great. And then you can see her power has gone down from 733,000, I think it was, to just under 300. It's a good way to drop your power and you're not losing anything. So rather than dismissing troops, you're just resetting things that you can get back straight afterwards, it's not a major issue. Now, my power has gone down slightly, so now it's under 530, which is great, but I'm still not able to transfer. So if we go to the transfer page, all of those powers are in red. 525 million is in red. I go to one of these states, I need a special transfer. I cannot move to that state unless they send me a special invite. But if I go again to my heroes, and I go to, let's say, Bradley, who's my strongest at the moment, and I remove my gear, take all of my gear off, and go back to the home screen, suddenly my power is 523 million. So technically, I'm now under that threshold. And if I go to the event, go to state 2617 again, suddenly that button has changed. So now I can transfer without having lost anything. I haven't lost any troops. I haven't had to sacrifice anything that I can't get back. And I can now transfer. Now, I've heard some people say, and it does get confusing, and unfortunately I can't actually put it into action because I'm not transferring anywhere, but some people say that you still can't be invited. So the transfer manager will still see your power as what it was, so 529 million. I don't know if that's true. If we go to my leaderboard, no, that's not what I want, leaderboard, personal power. So yeah, so it does say my power is 523. So I'm not sure I believe that. I'm pretty sure the state president or the transfer manager would see that being your power. But the fact that the button shows now, oh no, that's my own state. The fact that the button shows now shows that I am now under that power. So if I had an invite, I would now be able to transfer. So before you dismiss your troops and before you try to do it that way, just try removing all of your gear, try resetting your heroes to get your power down, and then try and get an invite that way. And if you're jumping in phase 3, then you don't need an invite at all. So it doesn't matter whether the president can or cannot send you an invite. In phase 3, you can just jump regardless. But if you are transferring, the important thing to remember is these 7 things need to be met. And if you are jumping in phase 3, you're usually on a time constraint. Those spaces could go very quickly, so you need to act very, very quickly. So when we were moving from state 2617 to 2613, I moved in the 3rd group, I believe. So we moved 2 groups over first, and then I moved in the 3rd group. But my job at reset, or right before reset, was to make sure that anyone trying to transfer had been kicked out of the alliance. They had to be out of the alliance. If they had left on their own, great. If they weren't leaving on their own, had to kick them out just to try and give them the best chance possible. But then I had a few people say I tried to transfer and I couldn't because my troops were out gathering. Then I had to recall them. Took them a minute to get back. By the time they were back, all of the spaces had been taken. So if you are jumping in phase 3, please make sure that you meet all of these requirements before you try to hit that transfer button. So recall all of your troops. Make sure you're not in an alliance and make sure that you're on this screen so that as soon as phase 3 starts, the second it starts, you can transfer. Now, the way that it used to work was that you couldn't transfer if you had troops in your infirmary and you had to make sure everything was healed before you transferred. That's not the case anymore, so you can keep them in your infirmary, transfer, and then heal them when you get to your new state. But what you can't do is get a bunch of troops injured so that your power drops and then meet the power threshold, because regardless of whether your troops are injured or not, they still count to your overall power. So even if your power drops below the transfer limit because of your injured troops, the game will still calculate those injured troops as part of your overall power. So you can remove gear, you can reset heroes to get under that threshold, but you cannot just simply injure troops. You can kill troops, sure, that's a way, but you might as well then just dismiss them. You can certainly do that, but having them injured in your infirmary will not bring your overall power down. Now, another important thing to talk about when it comes to transfers is the transfer passes. So we can see from this state that I need 10 transfer passes. I think it says there, if I click on this, no, it doesn't say. Annoying. But we can go and have a look at how many transfer passes I have. So if we go to the shop, nope. If we go to the Alliance shop, I'm getting very confused here. It's very hot here. Again, I know I've moaned about this before. It's 37 degrees today in England. For Americans, I don't know what that is. Close to 100. I'm melting. It's so hot. I'm dying. But if we go to the weekly shop and then go to the transfer passes, you can see that I currently own 24, so I've got more than enough to transfer. But my recommendation is for every single player to buy this every single week, at least till you have a decent amount of transfer passes, because no matter how good your state is, you're one idiot away from it all going wrong. You just don't know how your state is going to go. You don't know what's going to change for you. You might get bored and want to move somewhere. You might need to move because of someone constantly attacking you. Whatever the reason is, you're going to want to have that flexibility to move if you want to. So buy these passes every week. I mean, they're expensive. 125,000 of these Alliance coins. It is expensive, but honestly, having that safety net of being able to transfer if you want to, it's just worth it. It really is. And when we tried to move our entire Alliance, I think we ended up moving, I say entire Alliance, I think we ended up only moving 40 people. But there were a lot of people that were saying, I really want to come with you. I really want to join this new Alliance. But I've got 4 transfer passes and I need 8. And they were free to play because they hadn't been buying them week to week. It's so frustrating. And some of them we ended up having to just leave behind because they just never got the transfer passes. And then by the time they got them, they just quit the game or gave up. And it's annoying because we could have had 50, 60 people join us here, but just not enough people were getting transfer passes every single week. So if you struggle to have enough coins to buy that, just make sure you contribute to your Alliance tech every single day as much as you can. Make sure you get as many of those coins as you can. You also get a decent amount from Crazy Joe. So any chance you can get to get these coins, just save them up and get those transfer passes. Even if you're in a state that is absolutely brilliant and you love, something could go wrong. In my state in 26-17, at one point things were good. They were really good. We got on so well with a lot of people. There was one Alliance that caused most of the issues and was the Alliance that drove everyone out. But we got on. It was so good there. Honestly, we had such a good team. We were all happy. We were jumping between alliances. Things were great. Then suddenly things got really bad. Suddenly threats were being sent out in the world chat. And then 3 or 4 alliances all transferred out. Get these transfer passes because you do not know how your state is going to be in 3, 6, 9 months' time. You just don't know. Now, you can also buy them from the shop. I wouldn't really recommend doing this. I actually can't remember where you buy them from. Where'd you buy them from? Regular packs, somewhere down here. Talk amongst yourselves while I try and find them. I'm not going to be able to find them. There they are. So you got transfer passes here. You can buy them all the way up to $99.99. So as soon as you buy this one, it will unlock the next one for $9.99, which I think you will get 2 transfer passes for. So you can buy enough to transfer, but you can also get 1 free every single week. Yes, it's not free. Yes, you're paying Alliance coins for it, but it's not real money. It's things you earn from the game passively anyway that everyone should be able to afford it. If they save all their coins, everyone should be able to afford 1 transfer pass a week. So just make sure you buy it and make the most of what the game is giving you. But if you are planning to move to a new state, just speak to them beforehand. Try and find out how the state works. Try to find out how their alliances work together, whether it is a fair state, whether people work well together, whether buildings are rotated, the presidency is rotated, what bear trap times they do, whatever it may be. Just make sure that you know that information before you transfer there. Because the transfer is for a while. I mean, it's not permanent, but 4 weeks in this game is a long time. And if you move to a state that you're not happy with, those 4 weeks are going to feel like a long 4 weeks. So try your best before you move to a state just to find the best one. If you are someone that just jumps between states just for the hell of it and you just enjoy it and you just like to see what state's going to be like, not a problem. A bad state could be quite entertaining if you don't mind a little bit of drama. But yeah, definitely, I've just realised there that I'm in prison. People are going to think I'm actually in prison. I'm not. You may not remember the fat chicken that I've shown in my video a few times before. He puts me in jail. He begs for Minister of Interior every single time and then puts me in jail because he's a moron. I might actually go and attack him. He's not a moron. We actually love him, and the state is currently named after him, which, you know, all hail Chim, but not all hail Chim because he put me in jail again. But yeah, there's a lot of good states out there. There's a lot of bad states out there. Some states are somewhere in the middle, but just try to do a little bit of research beforehand. I'm not even going to bother talking about the transfer chat because it's mental. They never stop talking. And how are you supposed to read all that? But people put out their adverts there to try and encourage people to join their states. I can't go there. There's too many messages. It's too much. It is too much. But if you are looking for a state, go and have a look in there. See if you can see anyone posting anything that appeals to you. Usually people post their event times in there and how their states work. It's not always truthful, but it might be. So if you are looking for a place and you don't know where to look, go and have a look in there. And also contact other people in the state. So quite often when I've moved to different alliances, I think actually when I moved here, or right before we moved here, I contacted the state president who's since left. And in fact, that whole alliance left. But I spoke to him first. I then reached out to 3 of the other R5s in the state just to kind of be like, how does this state work? How do you like it here? How do people work well together? And that's how I kind of got a good picture. And I actually tried to join they keep changing their name. I think they're Bob now. But the old Val Alliance, they were actually the first alliance that I tried to join, or tried to say, hey, I'd like to bring my alliance over. And they said, great, we'd love to have you. Why don't you join this alliance instead? Which I think is quite a good sign for a state, because they're basically saying, we'd love to have you, but we're also trying to build up this other alliance, which effectively says we're trying to make the state a better place. If somebody says that, I actually do think it's a green flag. I think it's a great thing, because if people are all working together to try and strengthen each other, it just shows that that state is a good state. And this state, despite all of its flaws, it's a good state. So that is it. I mean, there's so much more that I could cover, and I've spoken for way too long, so I'm not going to go over more. But that's roughly how this event works. So if you've had a state transfer before and you've been worried about how it goes and how it looks, that's roughly how it is. The one thing to note also is when you do transfer, there are some things you lose. So you will lose anything over your protected... What's the word I'm looking for? I can't even remember how to see it now. Oh, there it is. Anything over your protected resources you will lose when you transfer. It's not a major problem. I remember looking and seeing what it said I was going to lose. It's included here, but also in your storehouse as well. Basically, anything over, you'll lose. It's fine. It's resources. You'll get them back. As long as you're gathering all the time, anyway, it's not a massive problem. But if you are looking to transfer soon, then maybe don't keep gathering if you're close to that threshold or if you're going over it, because you are going to lose it all anyway. Any events that are going on while you transfer, you'll just be reset, so you won't rejoin a new state and immediately join that leaderboard with the score that you got in your previous state. Anything will be reset, so just keep that in mind. And if you are looking to transfer and you're worried about your power level and you think you might be over that threshold and removing gear or resetting heroes won't be enough, then maybe just stop training troops for a while. If you know for sure you are going to transfer, just stop training troops. Try to keep your power down. If you've got an SVS, try not to push too much just so your power doesn't go up, just to keep your power at a reasonable level. And then once you transfer to your new state, then you can do all your upgrades in the next SVS. You can train more troops and get your power back up. So that is it for this video. I probably do need to do a part 2 for it because there's still a lot that I haven't spoken about, but I've just looked at the amount of time that I've recorded for this video and it is too long. So I am just going to wrap it up now. But thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel, for subscribing, for commenting, for joining, for anything that you do for this channel. It is always greatly appreciated. And if transfers are coming up for you and it's going to be your first time, good luck. Hopefully you find a good state. And if you want to advertise your states in the comments, feel free. Put out messages there if you are a state that wants to attract other people. Again, State 2613 is always looking for new members. State 4152, which is my other account over here. I'm not going to go to it completely. How do you change? Oh, there's so many things I forget to do in this game. But you can see the bottom one there. I've got an account there in 4152. We're very much recruiting as well. We're looking for not just people for the state, but people for our alliance in VKG as well. So if you are looking for a state and you're going to be around either 2613 or 4152, do contact me and we'll see if we can get you over. But thank you for watching and good luck whenever you transfer, or good luck if you just stay in your state forever. Peace.